Chimborazo is an imposing ice-capped stratovolcano located in the southern American nation of Ecuador. Standing at a height of 6,263 meters at its summit, Chimborazo's summit marks the highest point in the entire nation of Ecuador. However, this is not the only distinction Chimborazo's summit is noteworthy for, as its summit is also the furthest point on Earth from the center of the Earth. You may be asking yourself right now, surely the furthest point from the center of the Earth would be the summit of the tallest mountain on Earth, Mount Everest, right? Well, that would be incorrect. I'm not a cartographer or surveyor. Is that even who figures this kind of stuff out? Maybe it's geologists? So I'm just going to read off the explanation from the Wikipedia page for why this is the case for the sake of general clarity. Quote, "The summit of Chimborazo is the fixed point on Earth that has the utmost distance from the center because of the oblate spheroid shape of the planet Earth, which is thicker at the equator than it is from pole to pole. Chimborazo is 1 degree south of the equator, and the Earth's diameter at the equator is greater than at the latitude of Everest, which lies at nearly 28 degrees north. Notably, the second furthest point from the center of the Earth is the summit of Mount Huascarán, which was the location of the deadliest single incident I've covered on the channel, an unbelievably massive, apocalyptic avalanche that wiped out anything and everything that laid in its path of widespread destruction. Anyways, within the mountaineering community, Chimborazo is a fairly popular peak to attempt to ascend, as its status as the highest peak in the nation of Ecuador, combined with its close proximity to the nearby city of Riobamba, makes an ascent of the peak a highly appealing prospect to mountaineers in the region. The ascent's difficulty is considered to be in the moderately easy range, as while summit hopefuls ascending via the standard route to the summit will not have to endure pitches of highly technical climbing, some technical mountaineering knowledge is required to ascend successfully, as the upper slopes of the peak, in particular, are infamous for the layers of slick, black ice formed by the infamous, powerful, and frigid winds of the Andes. Chimborazo is host to 4 distinct, individually named summits: the peak's true summit, the Whimper Summit, which stands at a height of 6,263 meters, the Ventimilla Summit, which lies at an elevation of 6,234 meters, the Politencia Summit, which stands at a height of 5,820 meters, and the Nicolas Martinez Summit, which stands at a height of 5,570 meters. On November 10th, 1993, a summit team consisting of 6 French climbers and 1 Swiss climber, along with 1 Chilean and 2 Ecuadorian guides, were making their way along the upper slopes of Chimborazo, and the group was making good progress as they made their way up the most treacherous section of the climb, the section blanketed by a layer of slick, black ice, which begins at an elevation of 5,000 meters. As was fairly customary at the time, the 3 guides of the group had been hired by the foreign climbers from the city of Riobamba nearby. All 3 guides had indeed ascended Chimborazo previously. However, due to the high cost of mountaineering equipment, many guides around this time, this trio of men included, were unable to afford much gear outside of the necessary jackets, climbing boots, crampons, and rope that were required to reach the summit successfully, meaning that, aside from knowing the route to reach the summit along, the local guides offered little else to aid their foreign patrons in their bids for the summit, and would often skirt around common mountaineering safety practices, such as using harnesses attached to a fixed rope line and maintaining proper distance between their clients on the rope in the event that one should fall, as the eager and often largely inexperienced foreign climbers were often seen clustered together behind these local guides, ascending along a makeshift fixed line of rope as they ascended to the summit. This indeed also appeared to be the case for the 10-member summit team ascending Chimborazo slopes on November 10th, 1993 as well. As the team reached an approximate altitude of about 6,100 meters, just beneath the Ventimilla summit, tragedy would suddenly strike the team of eager and intrepid summit hopefuls, as suddenly a huge powerful avalanche began to cascade down the mountainside, propelled down the slopes with increasing ferocity by the layer of slippery black ice that lines Chimborazo's upper slopes. The team of 10 mountaineers found themselves caught directly in the path of this ferocious, thundering avalanche and were swiftly swept up by the avalanche and hurtled down the peak slopes, with the mighty avalanche spilling down the peak slopes and into the deep, crevasse-riddled glaciers below. The incident had been witnessed by another group of climbers who had been nearby, and upon witnessing the powerful avalanche swallow up the 10 climbers on the face, they swiftly began their descent in order to call for help, and by the late afternoon that same day, a search and rescue operation for the missing climbers was now underway. The search and rescue efforts to locate the stricken climbers were mounted by a group of approximately 20 to 30 local volunteer guides, who upon arriving at the peak immediately began to search across the vast, widely spread debris field of the powerful avalanche for any trace of the missing climbers. However, these search and rescue operations were stifled by the same fundamental issues that were often faced by these local guides, as they were lacking the proper equipment to canvass the debris field effectively for potential survivors, or most likely deceased victims. Equipment such as telescopic metal poles, which are quintessential pieces of equipment used in avalanche rescues worldwide. The search teams were unable to find any trace of the missing climbers throughout the afternoon, and were forced to retreat from the mountainside that evening without any further leads as to the 10 climbers' whereabouts. The search teams returned to Chimborazo slopes the following day to continue their efforts to locate the missing mountaineers. However, their efforts were halted in the late morning hours as another powerful avalanche erupted on the peak's upper slopes, sending another massive avalanche sweeping into the crevassed glaciers below, further burying any traces of the missing climbers beneath another debris layer of ice and snow. Search efforts would resume the following day and would continue throughout the days following. However, after 10 days of searching the vast, deep debris field without any further success, on the morning of November 21st, 1993, the search efforts for the climbers were officially called off. This deadly incident would mark the worst mountaineering disaster in the nation of Ecuador's history. In the aftermath of the incident, the local mountaineering scene would see a drastic shift from the culture of lax safety measures that had permeated the area, as local guides and officials were both keen on preventing such a tragedy from occurring again. The following year in 1994, Ecuador established its first official 26-member mountain search and rescue team, which was provided with rigorous and extensive training. This comprehensive training program was in large part funded by the French and Swiss governments, and has become the standard training certification for mountain search and rescue teams in Ecuador. Furthermore, the mountain guiding industry as a whole in Ecuador was also extensively reformed in wake of the tragedy by way of governmental regulations, as prospective mountain guides are now required to receive a guiding license from Ecuador's tourism agency to operate legally. However, while the practice has dwindled significantly as a result of these new regulations, unlicensed guides do still operate in the area under the government's radar. Nearly 22 years after the 10 climbers disappeared on Chimborazo on August 22nd, 2015, a local guide spotted something that immediately caught his eye as he descended the peak with a group of clients in tow. As the man described of his discovery, quote, "On the way down, at a height of 5,800 meters, I could see that there was something strange. Only two things crossed my mind. A mountaineer had once dropped a backpack, or there was a body there," he recalled. Upon descending a further 200 meters, at an altitude of 5,600 meters, he discovered that it was indeed not a backpack, but rather the decomposing remains of two climbers encased in a layer of ice. He described the condition of the remains he had discovered as, quote, "You could see part of the skull, half with jaws. On the other, you could see almost all of the legs, and the rest was covered by ice," he said. Upon leading his clients down the mountain safely, he notified officials of his gruesome discovery, and a recovery team was dispatched to the site the same day. Upon digging deeper into the ice, the recovery team was able to recover both bodies that had been spotted by the guide, as well as a third body buried beneath them, as well as some of the team's gear, including a film camera and a harness, the latter of which suggested that the team was perhaps not as ill-prepared for the ascent as outside observers had initially speculated. The bodies and recovered team artifacts were then removed from the mountainside. However, due to the poor condition of the decades-old remains, DNA samples from the 3 deceased climbers were sent to experts in order to identify the 3 deceased men. After the DNA had been tested, it was ascertained that the remains belonged to the 3 guides of the group, Ecuadorians Rodrigo Silva and Paulo Vinuesa, and the Chilean guide of the group, a man named Christian Munchmeyer. The remains of the remaining 7 climbers have yet to be unearthed. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment on it, and consider subscribing to the channel. You won't regret subscribing. I release new and interesting videos regularly, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my newest videos. If you enjoy my content and would like to support the channel directly, consider becoming a channel member, as channel members are a key part in helping make these videos possible for everyone to enjoy. Memberships start at just $1 a month, and I'll leave a link to the memberships page in the video's description if you'd like to become a member and help support the channel. Thank you all for watching.